Did you ever wonder? I do. Did you ever wonder why the sun always rises, but the stars never fall? Why dry land is never satisfied by water? And why fire never says enough?
Today on Bible Wonders with the Christian Car Guy Show, we're going to talk about the word temptation. And so, interesting, last night I watched a Disney movie that was done on the black fighter pilot group that was in World War II that was highly decorated, called the Red Tails. And one of the reasons they got the opportunity to so be distinguished was that the fighter group that was ahead of them in trying to protect the bombers in World War II would be easily distracted because the Germans would send their 109 Messerschmitts out in a smaller group to try to get them off their mission. In other words, they would look like, well, there's only 6 or 7 Messerschmitts. Let's go after those and shoot those down, and then we'll get some ace marks on our wings and that kind of thing. Well, when they would leave the bombers to go after those fighters, which were meant originally just to distract them, and simply put, they were going after their own glory rather than protecting the bombers. And more specifically, the 10 men that were in each of those bombers. And so this Red Tail group discerned a new way to fight where they would stay in and continue to protect the bombers, more importantly than shooting down the Messerschmitts. Staying on mission, so to speak. Well, I thought about that word as I woke up this morning, and God was playing with it in my mind, and so I decided to, even though I've visited it many times because it's part of the Lord's Prayer, is lead us not into temptation, I decided to take a fresh look at that with fresh eyes. As so many times I'm tempted, right, to go after my own glory rather than to give God the credit, or as I like to say, photobomb Jesus, right? I'm always stepping into the picture when he should be getting the glory, or I always struggle with that. So in Deuteronomy 4:34, we get a couple of looks at that word in Hebrew. It says that hath God assayed to go, and that assayed means like you would assay a metal to see if it was high quality. So he's just like testing to go, take him a nation from the midst of another nation by temptations, by signs, and by wonders, and by war, and by a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, and great terrors, according to all that the Lord your God did for you in Egypt before your very eyes. And so you got a really cool thing going on there where that word assayed, is one way to spell the word temptation in Hebrew. And then later on, when he says that God was making him a nation by temptations, there's another way to spell the word temptation in Hebrew. And in both cases, they kind of tell a story of marriage. And so you have this nun, which again would speak to faith in the one way that it's spelled is the first letter. And the other way to spell temptation starts out with Jesus. I mean, the mem, which is the letter that would mean water, but Jesus being the living water, when you hear the word Messiah, it starts with that MM sound. So usually when you hear a mem in the beginning of a word, it's kind of give you a picture of Jesus. But the second letter is the same in both words, and it's called a samic. And interestingly, samic is a circle, so it looks kind of like a wedding ring, and it means very much that idea of an eternal bond. And so you go, gee, when Jesus was tempted out in the desert as he was, and I should say that the third letter in both words is a hey, meaning that that's this concept of Jesus married or our faith married expressed in either spelling would give you an idea of what the word means. And so you get this idea that Jesus' marriage to his father was being tempted when he was taken out, and what kind of was going on, if you think about it, is he was being tested to see if he would go after his own glory or if he would go after the Father's. And such is my temptations almost every single day. Like, am I going to go after my glory? Am I going to go after the kingdoms? Am I going to go after to shoot down the fighter so that I look good? Or am I going to protect the people that are in my care? So, it's an interesting thing as I was thinking about saying the Lord's Prayer the way I like to say it, which is to create new ways to say, like, give us this day our daily bread. I like to say, give us this day our daily bread / Jesus. Give me this day our daily Jesus, because he is our daily bread. And so now when I get to temptation, I've added in this concept of, lead me not to a place of photobombing you, Jesus. And so how to give you something to wonder about today on Bible Wonders with a Christian Car Guy. Thanks for listening.
Did you ever wonder?